India and England are all set for round two then in Chennai. What will be different? Will the pitch be different? The fact that the crowds have come in is going to be different. The teams are different. Will the result be any different? It's a mouth-watering series that has been set up with England winning the first test so comprehensively not too long ago. 3 days turnaround, and we're all set for the second test match. This is ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Realme X7 5G and X7 Pro 5G. We've not changed much. Unlike everything between India and England, our panel remains the same. So consistency in selection and performance has been rewarded. Ian Bell is here at 3 a.m. in the UK and Sanjay Manjrekar as well. We spent 3 days, gentlemen, discussing how important tosses were after discussing the same thing for the 5 days of the first test. And the toss has gone Virat Kohli's way. How big is that, Sanjay Manjrekar, as India have decided to have a bat first?
Okay, this is a new thing that I'm hearing in Indian cricket where tosses suddenly have become very crucial. Because if you've looked at Indian cricket in the last 7, 8 years, I mean, Dhoni lost 18 tosses but won 14 times. Virat Kohli himself lost about 12 and won 7 times. So this is a new issue. Tosses didn't bother India when they played at home because the pitches were, what India wanted. And I don't think it's a big deal. A big deal was made of the toss in the first match because England won it and batted superbly. They got 578 runs, which no other foreign team in the past was able to do. They won tosses but couldn't get over 400 runs. And when they did, on the odd occasion, India lost. So toss not that crucial as far as I'm concerned.
All right, let's get thoughts from Ian Bell. And we thought England's big test would have been if they were put in the situation India were, losing a toss on day one, having to chase a game or at least be behind in a game. They've lost this toss. After all that was said, how would this perhaps play down with them, Benny?
Well, I think that obviously would have discussed this. I think that it's going to be the attitude now that they go into day one. There's no doubt both teams would love to have batted first. India have won this one, but England's attitude now, how they go about that. How, can they be patient enough today if there's not as much happening as when they bowled on day three, and day 4 and 5. So, yeah, it'd be fascinating to see how they go about it, if they can do it better than what India did in the first test match. So it's going to be great to see. Obviously, a lot of changes by the sounds on both teams, but it will come down to attitude now. Can England, as we said, chip away all day and maybe restrict India below 500, which I think they'd be really happy with.
All right, let's get into team news now. And that was the other big mystery. We spoke for so long on what sort of team India should have picked in the first test. Will they pick a different one in the second? They have made some changes. And Kuldeep Yadav does get a game. He comes in for Washington Sundar. Shahbaz Nadeem is out. Akshar Patel is in. You think he was in line to make his test debut in the first test. So that's test debut cap number 302 for India. And finally, big words from Kohli. Speaking of the workload management of Bumrah. So he's rested. And in comes Mohammad Siraj. That's the team then, which will effectively now see Akshar Patel bat at number 7, Ashwin at 8, Kuldeep Yadav in a 3-man spin attack, which includes one wrist spinner, and Ishant and Siraj, the two seamers. Let's go to Sanjay for that one. Kuldeep, let's start with Kuldeep Yadav first. What do you make of that call, Sanjay?
A little unfortunate that Washington Sundar misses out because of what he's done in the limited opportunity that he's got. But this is how Virat Kohli goes about his business. He looks to chop and change personnel rather than change tactics or play the same people to bowl. The advantage of having Kuldeep Yadav is that a lot of English batsmen were playing the Indian spinners off the back foot, which is a very impressive thing that I saw in the first test match. With Kuldeep Yadav, they may not be that comfortable or certain about what's coming from the hand. So that mystery element, works for India with Kuldeep Yadav.
And the fact that he's going to bowl second and fourth now, Belly. You made the point in the first test. Wrist spin, England batsmen should have picked it. You happy to see Kuldeep in if you were an Indian supporter?
Yes, definitely. I think Akshar Patel being fit, I think makes a big difference. I think that if he was fit for the first test, he probably would have played. Like you said, it's really hard for Washington Sundar to miss out. He's obviously a talented young player, but you get the impression, again, for the balance of the side, this one looks a nice balance. If Akshar wasn't fit, then it would be hard to get, I suppose, called in because the ball's turning the same way. But yeah, I think, again, getting 20 wickets is the most important thing. Back the batters to get the runs is a big day for India to go out and deliver that. But now it looks like a bowling attack that, could cause England some problems. Certainly the lower order, having the ball that can spin both ways with a little bit of mystery, which will be harder for the tail enders.
All right. Yeah. The other big call, of course, is Sanjay, you want to add something to that before?
I think you're going to say exactly what's in my mind. So continue.
No, I'm just going to the big discussion on Bumrah now. Bumrah versus Mohammad Siraj. We don't often hear the Indian captain speak of workload management for seamers. It's understood that that happens with Bumrah, but after what he's gone through in the first test, but the fact that India lost, would you have rested him, or do you understand India's call?
See, Bumrah didn't play the last test in Brisbane as well. So he had a
Hmm.
bit of a break, but the workload that he had in that first test match, he bowled 36 overs in the first innings, out of which a lot of them were with a soft SG ball, tattered seam, and bowled a lot of Yorkers. It took a lot out of him. So I don't mind India resting Bumrah purely because now India got quality depth in their seam bowling, and Mohammad Siraj coming in makes me feel a little hopeful because these are perfect conditions for somebody like Mohammad Siraj who gets the ball to reverse swing, he gets the ball to a new ball to swing as well. So not a bad thing to happen. Ishan Sharma will be tested again because these are conditions that are not ideal for him. And Akshar Patel coming in, I think it's a good call because he was supposed to play, wasn't he, before Shabaz Nadeem? So those calls I understand. And resting Bumrah because we have quality seam bowling attack in the reserves, I think it's not that big a deal.
It takes us to a conversation that we were sort of touching upon yesterday with Ian Bell on England's decision to leave James Anderson out. And I guess when it comes to this call on rotation and workload management, Belly, Sanjay makes the point, all format, you made the point, all format was a single format. There's no Jimmy Anderson, which was confirmed on the eve of the test match. And India responded to that with no Jasprit Bumrah. But it seemed like a different situation for the two. You can understand why Bumrah has been rested, but did England miss a trick by not having Anderson in the side when they're 1-0 up in the series?
Um, again, I think Jimmy Anderson, again, he's proven time and time again he's our best bowler. So I'd rather see him playing, and he doesn't play any other format. So I'd like to see him out there if he's fit. I think this obviously the fact that the next test match is a day-night test match is throwing a bit of a spanner in the work. Obviously, everyone wants their best seamers available and fresh for this day-night test match, but also I think in test match cricket particularly, you've got to play what's in front of you as well. This is a huge test match right now. England have got an advantage. They're ahead of the game. From a fan point of view, let's not let them back in. Let's try and go 2-0 up, and then we'll worry about the day-night test match down the line.
Yeah.
That's sort of my feeling on it. But there's a lot of emphasis, isn't it, about having your best seamers available for the day-night test match.
Yeah, we'll discuss Akshar Patel in detail in a bit, but since we've triggered this conversation, Sanjay, just want to know your thoughts when you heard England's team announcement. It would have been a plan to rotate Broad and Anderson. Could that have plan been tweaked after the result of the first test and the fact that Archer was injured?
And the fact that Archer is injured and not available. The other thing is this kind of a pitch, I think anybody else other than Jimmy Anderson might struggle a bit. Jimmy Anderson has got the hang of how to get wickets on these kind of pitches. Day-night test matches, you might expect lesser seam bowlers, lesser experience, less quality seam bowlers to do the job. The other thing is, when you look at Jimmy Anderson's workload in the last test, he bowled 27 overs in 5 days. So sometimes you got to also, start thinking on your feet. For example, Bumrah was rested purely because India fielded for 578 runs. And Bumrah bowled 36 overs. If India had a short game, maybe Bumrah would have played another test. So I'm not sure it's the right call because you want to capitalize on the win that you had now. And this pitch at Chennai will test whoever replaces him. And because Jimmy Anderson got it in the first innings, that would have been ideal. And because he didn't bowl as much, 27 overs in 5 days, not heavy workload. And with Archer missing, I would have gone for Jimmy Anderson. And like we say in Hindi, jo hoga aage dekha jayega. We'll see what happens, after the second test.
Yeah, that's sort of things which are indicated either by the result or with the way the test match goes on. If it turns out to be that sort of rank turner, we may not even discuss spacers for very long in this series. Let's confirm the England 11 now that we've already touched upon it. 12 were confirmed on the eve of the test by Joe Root. The one call they had to take was whether Chris Woakes comes in or Ollie Stone, and they've gone with Stone, who's just played that one test match against Ireland. So not much game time between Moeen Ali, Ben Foakes, Ollie Stone in recent times. Stuart Broad is a wealth of experience that replaces Anderson. You think that they don't miss much, at least in terms of experience on that front. Let's go to Ian Bell for that call on Ollie Stone. You know a lot about Ollie Stone. Tell us what sort of bowler he could be on this surface, Betty.
Yeah, I think, I thought that was the way they would go because it matches how they've gone. They like to have someone who can bowl good pace. Ollie Stone, again, he's skiddy, he's fast, he's quick through the air. A bit more like Mark Wood. He's not particularly tall, so he'll be skiddy. At home, he can swing the new ball, but I don't see that happening too much in these conditions. So they'll be looking, I'm sure he's worked as hard as he can on those middle overs. If the ball starts to tail, can he do that? I haven't seen him do that lots, to be honest with you, and he probably hasn't had the opportunity to do that before. He's never played I don't think a test match away from home, so that'll be interesting. But again, we've got three guys who haven't played any test cricket yet this winter going into this series. And we all know what it's like as a player. You can net as much as you like, you can train as much as you like, but playing a test match out in the middle is different. So all of a sudden, as Sanjay said, and I'm a big believer, like a batter, Jimmy Anderson had got the lengths and everything right for this pitch. And now we've got three guys coming in that have to find their feet and find it really quickly today. Because if you're slightly off against this batting line, they're going to hurt you. And I think what England were so good at in that first, that they were just on it. They were just so good. Whether it was reverse swing, they nailed it. The skills, the lengths, everything were fantastic. So I hope he goes well. We will see good pace, and that's what he'll bring. But I hope, like I said, the three new guys can start well. They're good cricketers, but again, they've got no game time behind them at all.
Yeah, Ian Bell made that point, Sanjay. This old cricketing adage: when you win, why would you want to change a winning team or a winning combination? England have made 4 changes: one forced through injury, one forced by their own squad decisions and managements of Butler only for the first test, and then 2 more that happened to come in. It just seems like a different side from the one that won in the first test.
We live in different times, and this is entirely to do with the amount of cricket that these guys play, especially in this COVID situation. It's tough for a player to keep playing for India all the time or for his nation because of the restrictions around it. So all the more reason to give people breaks so they remain sane to begin with. So that also is another consideration. But having looked at the changes made, Jimmy Anderson, I would have played him. He didn't have much of a workload in the last test, but their spin attack, Ronak looks better. I think MOEEN Ali is more suited than Dom Best to exploit the conditions that we have in Chennai. So spin attack with Jack Leach now knowing exactly how to bowl on this kind of a pitch. He bowled a lot quicker in the second innings. So I'm looking at the spin attack and looks very good. You've got a left-arm spinner, pure left-arm spinner who bowls 90 kilometers per hour. And MOEEN Ali is the right trajectory, right pace as well. And has a good record against against India, not so much at home, but he might enjoy bowling on this pitch. Same attacks weakened. Wokes would have been an interesting consideration, considering that he had troubled a couple of Indian batsmen on the last trip with a short ball. But I think they've had a look at the pitch and they've realized that the area that matters, the length and the short of length, doesn't have much of hardness. So maybe Wokes missed out because of that. And as Ian said, all is stone because of his pace in the air.
MOEEN Ali, interesting test match this for him. He's such a such a cricketer that triggers so much conversation in the UK. Playing a test match after nearly 18 months, you think this is an important personal test as well for MOEEN Ali. It's the start of perhaps a second coming of sorts in test match cricket, and that seems to be a huge level of expectation from MOEEN Ali, especially when in England are here.
Definitely, I'm a massive, as many people are, MOEEN Ali fan. The way he plays his cricket, he's a great character in the dressing room as well. But yeah, it's a big day today because it's not going to be in his favour either. He's going to have to be able to bowl tight, as Ashwin did in that first test match. So yeah, fascinating to see how he goes. He obviously adds more with the bat as well. But tough again, like as we've said, away from home his stats aren't as good. So this will be fascinating to see how he goes. Again, it's really tough on Dom Best. I mean, again, all the records is he's been dropped, but he's off the back of 2 fifers in Sri Lanka and a 4 for first. And I guess there's a mixture of deliveries that have come down, but he has got overs under his belt and wickets as well. He seems to be a bit of a golden arm. But yeah, I'm pleased for MOEEN to get the opportunity. Probably out and out. If I had a choice, I still think MOEEN's the best spinner out of the 2.
Sanjay is an interesting character, isn't he? MOEEN Ali. He does well for England with the ball in England, but in conditions that are presumably more helpful for him, the numbers aren't very good.
Yeah, I saw 31 wickets there, out of which I think 19 came against India. And that's one reason why he got so many wickets in that series, because India was so focused and under pressure against Broad and Anderson that they looked at Jimmy Anderson as a relief, and that's where Anderson got his wickets. I'm not an expert of English cricket. I haven't followed it every ball. But from the outside, I always found MOEEN Ali's the use made by English cricket of MOEEN Ali a little hard to understand, because the cricketer MOEEN Ali is an extremely talented cricketer. I mean, the way he bats and bowls. But I always got this impression watching from a distance that he would have maybe had a greater career, more established player if he was looked at as a bowling all-rounder rather than a batting all-rounder. I thought in England invested a lot in MOEEN, the batsman. He's open for them. He's batted at in the middle. He's batted down the order. Had they sort of given him more responsibility as an off spinner, certain off spinner in the side, then perhaps he would have flourished a little more. But that's a view from the outside of Moeen Ali.
He's got tests now ahead of him of bowling on day one of this newish Chennai surface. And let's discuss that for a moment, shall we? All this talk about pitches, it seems like from the information that we've got from the pitch report that this is going to turn. Ajinkya Rahane said it on the eve of the test match that we look like this is going to turn from day one. We're hearing something similar from Murli Karthik on the broadcast as well, that it's dry, it's going to turn. Let's go to Sanjay first up. He's the pitch doctor in India. You know everything about it, Sanjay. And would there have been any sort of pressure after how the first game went to just have a different sort of pitch prepared, no matter which team wins the toss?
Pitch doctor, as in, are you suggesting that I doctored pitches? No, you don't mean that.
No, that's not
right. Yeah, I'm not sure whether the Chennai pitch didn't turn at all on day one. I thought it turned on day one as well. It looked a turning pitch from day one, albeit very slow. And as we called it, right through the test match, it was a flat turn. So this is a different soil. And from the reports that I read, the soil is different. And the pitch is different and soil is different. It's got a bit of clay content. It's not going to dust up like the one that we saw in the first test. It may not be as flat a turner. So this is the kind of turner that India wanted. So we'll see how it goes. And there's a likelihood the ball will start turning from day one. I remember watching India-South Africa game at Nagpur, and the first ball turned viciously 40 minutes into the test match. So let's wait and see whether this happens here in Chennai.
Would this in any way play in the minds of the batsman, the touring batsman belly, or does the first test change a lot of things? Suddenly everyone's a little more confident, even if they are to expect a more turning, more prodigiously turning surface.
Oh, there's no doubt the first innings that England played has given that dressing room a world of confidence. There was always going to be bigger challenges on this tour. There's no doubt. They got that was a great toss to win, and I'm sure if India had won the toss, we're talking a completely different way about it. But one thing I would say is the toss was important, but England delivered to the highest level they possibly could have done, or probably any English team has ever delivered. To bat the style they did, but not just like it's already touched on the way they went back, the way they came forward, the movement, the way they defended, the way they attacked. Obviously, all led by Joe Root, but it was absolutely a masterclass of batting on that first day. Regardless of how flat the pitch was, I think that this is be interesting today. India have won a good toss. Can they now go out? We know the abilities there and the talent. Can they go and deliver what England did on day one today and set the test match up for their bowlers?
Absolutely.
All right. Let's focus on a few other quick changes now. And Stuart Broad returns. Stuart Broad is such a celebrated cricketer in the world, 145 test matches, but you still look at those numbers in India, in the subcontinent, they're not quite where you'd expect a bowler of Broad's quality. He averages nearly 54 in India. He averages nearly 47 in Sri Lanka. Not a bad record in the UAE in a small span of time, Belly, but you've played so much with Stuart Broad. We discussed this time and again, Anderson and Broad in India. Anderson still has respectable numbers. Broad somehow just doesn't seem to be the sort of bowler that you'd expect him to be in these parts of the world.
Again, that's the beauty, isn't it, of international cricket. I think a little bit like Jimmy, he'll know that and he'll have a point to prove. I think I expect him to come out all guns blazing. Again, I'm not sure he's a 100% fan. I don't think he enjoys the rotation thing. He wants to play as much cricket as he can.
Yes.
He backs his ability. He's a high amount of ability in his own game. What I think we'll see, he's learned these tricks over the time. He'll bowl a lot more leg cutters now. He'll his pains ratio will go up and down. He won't just try and tear in. So I think we'll see a more skillful bowler than we have done in the past. He's come to India. He knows his game a lot more. But I think as the game goes on, we'll see a lot of these leg cutters that he's developed now. And his accuracy, again, him and Jimmy now have become so good at just hitting an area. Yes, they don't have the pace that maybe they used to have, but the accuracy they bowl with, I expect to see that from Stuart Broad, just nagging away and using his skills now that he's developed in the last 2 years.
Often on these sort of turners, Sanjay, we tend to see pacers surprise us and take the headline. So they tend to have a big role when they're not expected to. You think Broad's one of those that could have that sort of series, even though he's not the type of bowler that he is. Do fast bowlers get better as they get older when they travel toward the subcontinent?
Yes, that happened with Malcolm Marshall, the great Malcolm Marshall. People don't remember him at all when he played the first series. Just looked like a young fast bowler. Last time Stuart Broad came to India, you have almost no memory of Broad playing and his exploits there. And he was one of the disappointments there. And I remember Stokes being one English seamer right to the series, who ran in hard and made some impression on the Indian batsman. And that was a series when Karun Nair got a 100 at Chennai. So Broad was just one of those guys who played. This time around, I get the feeling, I think he's bowled well in Sri Lanka as well, had one good spell. You'll expect him running in hard, and as Ian Bell mentioned, those skills bowling leg cutters. And this is another very aggressive bowler who's looking to get wickets. So if we waited long enough for Stuart Broad to make an impression, my feeling is, and I would maybe venture a prediction, you might see the best of Broad in this particular test match, because he knows he's the lead back. He enjoys that kind of responsibility, and more importantly, the length that goes from the height that he does. I don't know whether Bell can help us understand it. England bowlers were also very aggressive. If Jofra Archer came in and bowled some short balls, and they were hard at the batsman, and that had some effect on the Indian batsman. Whether Broad will use the short ball at all to intimidate some of the Indian batsmen?
Belly?
I think he may be at time. I'm not sure he's that bowler as much as he used to be. I think he got used for that for a while for England, but I'm not sure he's probably as much got that in his arsenal anymore. I think Ollie Stone will be used for that, no doubt. He has the pace.
Okay.
And they will either, with the reverse swing, I'm sure they'll use the bouncer, and then obviously to push the Indian batters back and then get the full one up there to try and trap them on the crease. But we might see Stuart Broad at some point, but I think his will be a bit more like Jimmy. He'll be honing on that good length, trying to drag them forward. And if there's any reverse swing or lateral movement, trying to exploit as much as that as possible. But agreed, I think we might see that. We've seen less of it in the recent time. He's just been so accurate, really. And in English conditions, again, both him and Jimmy have been, certainly the last 18 months, again, have just got better and better. They just hit an area and get as much out, or let the pitch actually do the work, but they get as much out of it as they possibly can.
All right. Can we tell? Will Stuart Broad take the new ball? Will he bowl a long spell with the new ball? We were discussing after the first 20 minutes on day one of the first test that perhaps India should have started with spin, or maybe brought on spin a little earlier. What are we expecting, gentlemen? Belly, let's start with you. Broad and Broad and Ollie Stone, or we get an over of spin early on? How fast do you think we'll see a spinner in this test?
Day one, I'd expect both seamers probably to start, but I wouldn't think, if it doesn't look like anything's happening, I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Root whips one of them out after 2 overs. I don't think he'll let the game drift. So I think Leach will be in the game pretty quickly, but I would imagine they'll have a bit of a look at the pitch to start with, maybe a couple, and then maybe they'll let Leach go from one end for a while and rotate the seamers. But I expect both the seamers to start. But again, if this was, I'm not, again, with what they saw in that second innings with Leach open, we could see that as well. But I think day one, you'd probably go with your 2 quick men.
Yeah.
They've been good tactically, haven't they, Sanjay, so far in this first test?
Excellent. They're very good, and some, very important moves that worked for them. And I saw them also learning from their first innings mistakes, especially spinners. They bowled differently. So yes, England tactically was good, and would love to see India, when they lost a test match, try and trust the players that were there when they lost the first test, because just imagine Washington Sundar and Shahbaz Nadeem miss out on a pitch that's completely different from the first one. So, we should not, Indian cricket should not think that all problems and, all defeats can be changed or resolved. Problem could be resolved by change of personnel. So that's going to be interesting. But as India bat first after winning the toss, Rohit Sharma is a guy who comes into focus, because there's a bit of pressure building on him. He's been around for a long time. So I think more expectations from Rohit Sharma.
No, that's an interesting one. Keep an eye out on Rohit Sharma. Shubman Gill has had such a shining start to his test career. And you think of Rohit Sharma and you think, how can any 11 not have him? And yet, every few games, Belly, in Indian cricket, we tend to have this conversation. And it's more to do with test cricket. He's, of course, secured his place in the white ball formats. But here comes Rohit Sharma again now with perhaps we can say the Indian openers and the Indian batting, which was disappointing in the first test by Virat Kohli's own admission, not having any excuses this time on the toss factor at least. They won the toss, they get to bat first. If anything, there's a little more pressure on them to make sure this time they don't end up 60, 70, 80 for 4.
100%. It's a big day. I think this is a big day of Test cricket for the series. But I think, again, for the Indian batting lineup, we know ability-wise, there's no doubt. But there's players under a little bit of pressure who have to deliver today. There's no doubt. So it'd be fascinating to watch. And I'm a big believer, as Sanjay said, if you lose a Test match to learn, you should give that same. If that team was good enough to play the first game and lose, it still should be good enough to win the second. And that's how you evolve and learn from your mistakes from the first game. But yeah, fascinating. There's a couple of players, I think. This Indian batting line, if it fires today, I think that's not good signs for England for the rest of the series. But if England have a good day with the ball, this is there's more pressure building up on that Indian batting lineup.
Stuart Broad has the new ball in hand. We're all set for this first ball.
And he's got the headband as well on.
He's got it on already. He ran on to it. He forgot it, so he went back in and put it on and then ran back out. It's Stuart Broad. One last point. It was just nice to hear the crowds back at the grounds in India, Sanjay. At the toss, Virat Kohli won it. That sort of customary cheer when the Indian captain wins the toss. No artificial ambience, not added by the producers. It's nice to see people back at the cricket grounds in India.
And especially at Chennai, from my playing experience and having worked as a broadcaster, great crowd. I mean, they've always been, people say, well educated about the game, but more than anything, very respectful of players who play on the cricket fields. I've always enjoyed my time playing in front of the Chennai crowd.
All right. England have made this cricket worth watching at 4, 5 a.m. if anyone's woken up for it. Let's see if they can do that for Ian Bell or whether it's going to be an India session like it was for England when they won the toss in the first test. Big thank you to Sanjay and Belly. We'll get their thoughts at lunchtime on ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Realme X7 5G and X7 Pro 5G. India won the toss. England are one up in the series. This is a big test match, so we'll have you covered on the show. See you at lunch.